el exec, el Vélez, el fenómeno que todos quieren ser, el chamaquito que no pueden entender.
How we doing, guys? How we doing on this beautiful Thursday morning? I'm coming to you a little bit later because a lot of news went down yesterday, and it just kept coming out throughout the day and throughout the night. So I wanted to compile all that to have a nice stacked episode for you guys, as well as breaking down the AFC and NFC championships. But yep, welcome to episode 76 of El Boricua El Parcero podcast. I'm El Boricua El Velez, and yeah, let's get right into it. So first thing off the board. I mean, we can get to the football, we can get to the basketball, but I think I'll go in order on how it happened so we can talk about everything in due length. First thing, NBA related. Terry Rozier. We send Kyle Lowry to the Charlotte Hornets for and we send a 2027 first round pick for Terry Rozier. What does this do? First of all, let me applaud the move. I think that this is a better situation that we were in because Kyle Lowry was getting up there in age. He was like 37, almost 38, kind of fat. You know, it is what it is. He didn't have the legs he didn't have anymore, you know, especially on the defensive end. So Terry Rozier, 29 years old, 20-point-a-game scorer. He played yesterday. Coming off the bench, it's going to take a little bit of time to I think, work his way into the starting lineup, but I believe he will be our starting PG with Tyler. And then when Triple J comes back, we'll see how the lineups work with Jimmy and Bam. Now, we lost yesterday, which I don't like, obviously, but I think that, you know, as Terry gets ingratiated into the offense more, I believe that he will add a certain level of one-on-one creation, shot creation that just we don't have. It's only Tyler, really. When you look at Jimmy can create one-on-one, but it's not his real cup of tea. He rather slash, cut back door, get offensive rebounds, work the paint, work the block, you know, get it off the catch. You know, that's what Jimmy's game is more predicated on. Maybe the little things to get him scoring opportunities, transition, and stuff like that. Tyler's really the only one that really adds a one-on-one creation dynamic to our offense. And when you only have one of those players, it can become highly inefficient because people can key in on that and blitz them and stuff like that. And if you don't have people to directly be decisive in attacking closeouts and stuff like that, then you'll run into an inefficiency in offense, which we've had, unfortunately. So I think that as long as we keep our defensive integrity intact and Terry adds that scoring punch to the individual creation side of our offense, I believe that this will be a great move for us. It seems like we've been eyeing Terry for a while based on how he's been talking. He's talked to Dwayne Wade, and he's looked at the Miami Heat and in like admiration for a long time. So I think it's a great move. We get off of Kyle Lowry, we get off the contract as well. The 2027 round pick, first round pick. Listen, guys, based on how our records always come out, I don't think that this will be very much of consequence. We always get a 15 or below pick. We saw what we did with Jaime at 18. So, you know, 2027, you know, my dad said, oh, you're kind of giving away a little bit of the future. But when you really realize it, like, we're not a garbage team. We're always going to be in the playoff mix. So I don't see that it being a big deal. That's not probably going to be a lottery pick or even a high one at that. So I don't think it was a reach. He's 29 years old. He's basically in his prime. He can shoot the three. He's been shooting the three at a 39% clip this year, scoring 23 points a game. I don't think that we need that from him, although we could use it on some nights. Maybe we can use a big scoring punch from him if he's hot. But definitely the spacing on the floor, the off the dribble creation. I believe that he can run the pick and roll with Bam or Triple J, and I think it'll be very deadly. Or Duncan, or even Jimmy, or Tyler, as two shooters. But I think that once he gets ingratiated into the offense, and I think he'll be a good perimeter defender for us, better than Kyle Lowry was being. I think that will be an addition to us in the long run. Right now, we're not doing too hot because Triple J is down with the groin injury. Jimmy being back hasn't really provided the punch that we thought it would. But then again, it's Jimmy in the regular season. We know how he is. So, I think as long as we stay in the top 6, top 5, I know that nobody wants to face the 76ers. So if we were the 6th seed, we would go in that 3-6 matchup. But I think if we stay in the top 6, we should be good. The next big news in the NBA, Adrian Griffin. We were talking about this. He was a rookie head coach. He had him second in the East, but there was clearly a lack of connection between him and the players, because the offense, although it was doing well, it was not doing as well as it could have been. Now, with who they hired, will that change? I have no idea. He's been talking about it a little bit when he has called their game, so I expect him to go in there and try to change the mentality of Giannis and Dame to run the pick and roll. But Adrian Griffin gets fired as the Bucks head coach. Third highest winning percentage ever for a coach to be fired mid-season. And they hired Doc Rivers off the analyst desk and game calling desk of ESPN. Now, everybody knows how we feel about Doc Rivers. He still lives off of the 2008 championship. We kind of laugh at him for it. He has the most losses in Game 7 history. He has the most blown 3-1 leads, the most blown 3-2 leads, and the most blown leads in the playoffs ever. You can point to the fact that he was dealing with Ben Simmons. You can point to the fact that he was dealing with a aging Blake Griffin, like you could, and a hurt Chris Paul, which is like always basically. But at the same time, you cannot get leads in the playoffs and just squander them. And that's what happened. What has happened in his career ever since the 2008 championship with the Celtics. So, do I believe that this will push him over the top to beat Boston or the 76ers the way they're playing right now? I'm not sure, but I think that having at least a coach that has been there, done that over a 10-year and dealt with superstars as Joel Embiid and dealt with Blake Griffin and Chris Paul and Ben Simmons and James Harden, I think dealing with those type of caliber of players will help him dealing with Dame and Giannis when it comes to like, hey guys, you guys are doing great. You're running one of the most efficient offenses in the NBA history. I think it's 124.6 right now. One of the most efficient ever. But it could be even more efficient and more deadly, especially in the playoffs, if you guys run the pick and roll. So I think that maybe Doc will bring that in. Maybe he'll also bring a defensive identity. Although, the best defensive team he's ever been a part of was that 2008 Celtics team. That's because of KG. But I think that there's a possibility for this Milwaukee team to reach a higher ceiling with Doc Rivers because of the experience. Giannis is a type of dude, and so is Dame, that I don't think that they're losing leads in the playoff type of players. I think the mentality is different for them than James Harden or Joel Embiid. I don't have to worry like a Joel Embiid or James Harden, excuse me. I don't have to worry. I don't have to be like this. I don't have to be like that if in the playoffs for either of those two. I know that they're going to produce. I've seen it over and over and over and over again. Giannis won a championship, having one of the greatest finals runs of all time, and then Dame is going to score. You're not going to stop Dame from scoring, whether it's in the mid-range, whether it's getting to the basket, getting to the line, or from three. I don't believe that there's any way that you could stop Dame with Giannis on the floor. And the reason I say that is because if you try, and let me be very clear about this, if you try to blitz Dame, you will leave a 4-on-3 on the other side, and Giannis will punish that every single time. There is no doubt in my mind that either Giannis gets it in the paint and just takes 2 steps to the rim and lays it up or dunks it, or he has Middleton, he has Covington, Jay Crowder's back now, you have Portis. So there is a lot of possibility, Robert and Lopez, there's a lot of possibilities that you can do if you sell out to stop Dame. If Dame is cooking and he's giving you 30 and it's the third quarter, and you feel like, oh, okay, maybe we got to stop Dame to try to shut off the faucet a little bit. Well, there's a 2-time MVP and a future Hall of Famer, another top 75 player in the paint, that will cut, that just, wreak havoc in the paint. So I think that Doc Rivers can maybe unlock that part of the game for him. But, based on his failures and his shortcomings with very good rosters in the past, people are questioning that. But I think it's a good hire. Overall, I think it's a good hire. People are bashing it and everything, but I believe that championship experience and playoff experience as a coach is a lot more important and valuable than most people realize. That's just my personal opinion. Next, it just came down today. Wes Unseld Jr. is out as the Wizards head coach. He will move into the front office role. I don't know why you would move a failing head coach into a front office role, unless he's shown you that he can draft well or he can identify talent well. If he's been part of the Danny Avdia and the Kuzma and Koulibaly, if he's been part of that process of drafting those players and developing those players, which have developed pretty nicely, and Daniel Gafford, okay, then I could understand why you would move him into a front office role. But this is a failing franchise. This has been a failing franchise since they turned into the Wizards when they were the Bullets back in the 80s. So what they need, and they're so young, but what they need is a complete reset from top to bottom. I think, first of all, you're not going to do anything in the NBA if you don't got one of those guys. And they don't have one. Kyle Kuzma ain't one of those. He could be a nice number 2, maybe a number 3 on a championship level team or a contending team. Poole's a failed experiment. Koulibaly, you have to develop him more. You have Corey Kispert. He's a good 3-point shooter. Gafford is a good center. But there is no guy. You don't got one of those dudes. And unfortunately, if you don't got one of those dudes in this league, you're just not going to do anything. It's just plain and simple. And even if you do have one, I'm looking at, when you look at Portland or the Spurs, when you do have one, or Charlotte, you might not be good anyway because they're too young or the roster's not right. So, Wes Unseld being out, I think it was just a mitigated risk at that point. I think it's just like, let's get him out. Let's bring somebody else in, maybe change the tone, change a little bit of the culture. But they're hiring from within. Brian Keefe, their top assistant, is the one who's going to take the interim job. So are you just recycling the same bullshit that you had before? Every coach has their own little sauce and believe that they can do it a different way. But this team can't defend for their life, and scoring is sometimes a very big hassle when Poole tries to go 1-on-5 or Kuzma's shot's not going down, or Kispert's off or Danny Advia is off. There's really no hope for this franchise until they try to get a dude, and nobody's going to want to go to Washington. But You can't blame him for trying. You can't blame him for trying to change the internals a little bit to try to maybe salvage a little bit about this season, get a little bit of positivity out of it. But I don't think it's going to work, to be honest. All right, let's get to the Giants' giant news. Okay. Let me be the first to congratulate the Chargers for finally making a smart head coaching hire decision. The Chargers give Jim Harbaugh a 5-year deal to become the Chargers head coach. And the reason he picked the Chargers was one dude. And he said it last year. He talked to Mike Greenberg, Greeny, from ESPN last year, and he said, I love Herbert. He's been looking at Herbert for a while, and that was where he was eyeing at. It was the reason he was their first interview. It was the reason why he went there first before anybody. He did interview with the Atlanta Falcons, but once he went back to the Chargers for a second in-person interview, he did not leave, and he was not going to leave. So he becomes Herbert's coach. Let me preface this by saying that they need a little bit of help on the outside. Keenan's getting a little old. Mike is injury prone. They need two more offensive linemen because they have Sealer, Johnson, and Slater. They're young. They're good, but they need another guard. They need a right tackle. I believe they need a running back. Knowing Jim, probably looking at Blake Corum in the second round. They need a tight end, a legit tight end. We're not talking about just let's just get a tight end. No. We're talking about like Brock Bowers. We're talking about a tight end. You know what I'm saying? A star. You might take him in the first round if he's there. Besides all of that, before all that gets done, this automatically puts Justin Herbert back in the conversation with the Mahomes, with the Allens, with the Jacksons, the Burrows. You know what I'm saying? Trevor has kind of fallen off that top, at least this season. We'll see next season. But, in order to win the AFC, you need a guy that instills fear on the other team. You need a guy that does that, okay? Mahomes does that. Lamar does that. Josh Allen does that. Joe Burrow does that, okay? And CJ Stroud, I think, is going to become, if he hasn't become already, he does that as well. You're going to have Aaron Rodgers healthy, in your division. So, not in your division, but in your conference. Anthony Richardson's coming back. So you need a dude, okay? Chargers got a dude. That's not the question. He's led the league in passing since he's come into the league. He's led the league in passing. He's second in touchdowns behind Mahomes since he got drafted. And he's led the league in yards. So I think that this automatically puts the Chargers back in the mix next year. Now, still got to get through Pat Mahomes. This is not no cakewalk, okay? Maybe a cakewalk over Broncos, over the Raiders, but you still got to beat Mahomes. You still got to beat Lamar. You still got to beat Burrow, okay? Now, I believe that their best course of action, even though people are like, it's going to cost too much and everything like that. And I'm like, it can cost too much, but you cannot beat young talent. And we've seen it. We've seen it in the league. You cannot beat young talent, especially on the outside. If I was Harbaugh, I'm immediately looking at T. Higgins. Immediately. But what? Well, you already got Mike Williams. He's kind of in the same vein. Yeah, but he's younger, more explosive, and he can take over for Keenan once Keenan starts to go into that number 2 role. It'll be a transitional type of thing. People think that they should get rid of Quentin Johnston. Listen, I think Quentin will get better this offseason. I think with a guy like Harbaugh, he's developed, good receivers and his Harbaugh's staff, I believe, is going to be very, very good. Harbaugh knows how to build a staff. He's probably going to pull people from Michigan and his old contacts from the NFL, I have no doubt. And his staff will be really good. I'm not giving up on Quentin yet because Quentin is the type of dude where, a kind of iffy, it was bad. I'm not going to say it was like any type of good, but, the latter half of his rookie season, he kind of showed something. So I believe that with Harbaugh, he'll develop into something. And he has one potential talent. He has like the build, speed, and if he can get the catching right and the ball tracking right, I believe that he could be possible a 1, if not a 2, especially to a guy like T once Keenan, starts getting up in age and he's already up there. He's in his 30s. But absolutely incredible A+ job at pulling the trigger by the Chargers. After wasting 4 years of Justin Herbert at an elite level, you did not want to do that again. You did not want to make another mistake, have another franchise quarterback go by the wayside like Phillip Rivers did, and this is way better than Phillip Rivers. This guy has an arm, he can run, he's 6'5", 6'6", 200-something pounds, probably, if we're talking reality, top 3 strongest arms in the league. The guy throws lasers. But with a guy like Harbaugh, who has developed Andrew Luck, who has developed Colin Kaepernick, J.J. McCarthy, he's won with Josh Johnson. This guy gets the best at what he has at the quarterback position. He played the position. He got drafted at the position. So I believe that this will be probably the best thing to happen to Herbert since he got drafted, because you get a coach like this, a leader of men. That's another thing. Brandon Staley was not a leader of men. Okay, you could clearly see they were not playing for him at the end. Okay, for you to be a defensive-minded head coach and your defense to be bottom 5 every year that you were there with the players that you had, like Joey Bosa, like Derwin James, like a Khalil Mack, like a Asante Samuel Jr. That's just, it doesn't fit. It doesn't sit right with me. Okay. Harbaugh goes in there. The first thing that's going to be instilled in that team is toughness. Okay. It's toughness, because that's what Harbaugh ball is known for. John, Jim, every single team that they've been on and coached is tough, from the defense to the offense. And it's going to start from the trenches. Both Harbaughs build their team from the trenches and then they go out. There is talent on both sides of the ball, but this draft is going to be extremely important, because what they do with those first 2-round picks is going to be what they're going to decide to start moving towards, and leaning towards for next season and the seasons to come. I believe that if Brock Bowers is there, you take him. You take him. Why do I say that? Plain and simple. If you get a guy that's a superstar, Kelsey-esque, at the tight end position, a.k.a. like a Mark Andrews, and he can be the safety blanket for Herbert. Also, he's a superstar. He has superstar talent. We're not talking about a Jason Witten here. We're talking about a guy who can possibly take the top off the defense, is great after the catch, strong hands, will catch in traffic, be the number 1 option. He was the number 1 option at Georgia for 3 straight years, and was the best player on their offense, essentially. So what I say is take Brock Bowers if he's there. If he's not there, go guard your offensive lineman. There's good ones, there's good ones in this draft, But if you get Brock Bowers, you already have something that Herbert will love. He had Hunter Henry, but it's not a Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is in the ilk of a Kelsey. When it comes to ability, it's in the ilk of a Kittle. He can block, he can catch, he can run routes. It's for a defense, it causes this. And for an offense that has Justin Herbert, can have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and if you go out and you swing the big bat and go get a T. Higgins, now you're really talking about a team that's going to put some scary, scary things on the offensive side of the ball from the perimeter perspective. Now, Harbaugh probably understands that Eckler is out the door. And I wouldn't blame him if he does trade him, or I don't think they can trade him because they didn't pay him. So he's leaving in free agency. Now, Is it above Harbaugh to go take Blake Corum? Remember, they don't have a GM right now. They still got to pick a GM because Telesco got fired as well. So do they go Blake Corum? Do you go with your guy, the guy who took you to a national championship, the guy you built the whole program around on the offensive side of the ball at Michigan? I can see him doing it. Seriously, I can see him doing it and it working. But with the second round pick, you can go offensive line and start building from the trenches, start really reassuring your offensive line so Herbert don't get hit and he can get the ball off. Or you can give him a guy in the backfield who he can trust in between the tackles, is not going to fumble, has somewhat the speed and the toughness that Harbaugh loves. He's not a Donovan Edwards, of course, he's faster, but Blake has the inside the 5-yard line, 3rd and 1 type of toughness that Harbaugh loves in a running back. And a guy that you can give it to 20, 25 times and he's going to be fine. Okay? And he's a leader. That's another thing. He's a leader. The biggest improvement to this team, besides the offensive side of the ball with Herbert, the biggest improvement to this team is going to be defensively. Joey Bosa will probably have a career year next year if he doesn't get injured. Khalil Mack will still keep being a beast. Asante Samuel Jr. will get back into the CB1 type of conversation. Derwin James will get back into the safety one of the league type of conversation with a guy like Jim Harbaugh at the helm. Because that's what he instills in players of that caliber. Hey, if you're supposed to dominate, dominate. This ain't no, we're not pitter-patting. We're not second guessing. No, you see it, you go. And I believe that's what Harbaugh's going to instill. So let me congratulate the Spanos family for finally accepting the fact that they need a leader of men and a good coach, that you need to pay good money in order to succeed in this league and not waste a superstar talent like Justin Herbert. And we'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be a very, very, very nice AFC West race between Kansas City and the Chargers, because those are the two at the top right now. And is it inconceivable to see Harbaugh compete for Super Bowls in the next 2-3 years? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, nobody's going to be like, where'd this come from? No, this is Harbaugh. This is a Harbaugh. This is just like John. You know what I'm saying? This guy took the 49ers after not reaching the playoffs in so many years, took them to 3 straight NFC championships. Okay? And he has a more talented quarterback now. Okay? So shout out to the Chargers for doing that. Let's talk about Bill Belichick. Suppose remember what I said about the age? I think that's a legit factor. I think that's a legit factor because of how the season and football is moving towards younger and more offensive-oriented geniuses from the OC position to the head coaching position. When you look at the guys who are really getting buzz and everything, we'll talk about who the Titans just hired. But at the same time, when you have a shot at the greatest of all time and you've come from mediocrity, I don't understand why you wouldn't at least kick the tires on them for 2-3 years. Now, for Atlanta, if you're going to take them, it's for now. You know what I'm saying? But you don't have a quarterback in place. And frankly, unless you trade up in the draft, you don't have really an ability to draft one unless you want to draft a Bo Nix, you know. But it's tough. It's tough. When I say it's tough, it's because, like, he's about to be 72. How many years is he going to give you? He really wants to get to Shula's record. He needs 15 wins. If he does that in 2 years, does he walk away with the record and that's it? Doesn't try to get you a championship. He's just like, nah, I was here for the 15 wins and I'm out. I just wanted the record. Is that what he's looking for? Or is he looking for maybe to absolve his legacy a little bit by saying, oh, I just don't need Brady to get it done? You know, that's what Brady did. Brady went to Tampa and wanted to prove that, hey, it's not just Bill. Yeah, I could do it myself as well. And he did. He brought a Lombardi his first season. So, you know, that's all depending on Bill. But the fact that not many people are even kicking the tires or giving him an interview, from what we're hearing, is very interesting because, like, this is still Bill Belichick. At the end of the day, this is still the most decorated defensive mind in the history of the NFL. You know, this guy knows defense, knows how to set it up, knows how to basically take away your best option in any given situation, and he makes you play left-handed. That's his superpower. He's a leader of men. He's respected. Now, is he asking for too much power? Supposedly, in the Patriots, but when him and Kraft talked about it, he was willing to give up a little power when it came to drafting. But Kraft was like, nah, it wouldn't be right. Okay? So if he's asking for too much power, is that way into it? But I think it's the age. I honestly think it's the age. With guys like McDaniel, McVay, Slowick, you know, like the guy from the Titans, that Brian Callahan that we're going to talk about, you know, D'Amico. Like, when you think about who the coaches are, Kyle Shanahan, the teams that are succeeding right now, they all got young coaches. Zach Taylor, you know, they all got young offensive coaches. Is that why? Is that why maybe people are not, just like Brady, not many people kick the tires on Brady. Tampa was always the spot that he was, one, eyeing, and two, that were eyeing him. You know? So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Bill Belichick. Same thing with Vrabel. Now, Vrabel's not old, and Vrabel's a very good coach. But why is Vrabel also not getting love? I haven't heard anything that Vrabel's getting any type of looks, interviews. Now, will he surprise us one day and just pop up and be a head coach for a team? Maybe. But it's very surprising to see Mike Vrabel not being talked about in these discussions. Pete Carroll, he was looking at the Chargers job before Harbaugh got it. What's he going to do? He's about to be 73. Should he go into the advisory role that they have for him in Seattle? Supposedly he still wants to coach. You know, is he a guy that maybe Atlanta looks at? Probably not, because if they're not looking at Belichick, even that he interviewed, you know, I don't think that Pete Carroll, being a year older than him, they're going to look at that either. You know, even though Pete Carroll's another Hall of Fame coach. So it's very interesting how the head coaching search has gone, considering the type of candidates that are out there, and it looks like the young OC candidates and DC candidates are the ones that are getting most of the buzz. Mike McDonald from Baltimore, Brian Johnson from the Lions, Brian Callahan from the Bengals just got the Tennessee job. You know, your Bobby Slowick from the Texans. You know, that's very surprising to me. But, you know, maybe the league is changing towards that way, to a more young, let's try to build it in the long run rather than try to get good in the short run and have to move off a coach maybe, you know, 2-3 years in because of his age. So very interesting. Another thing, Brian Callahan as the new Titans head coach. This is the guy that kind of developed Joe Burrow behind Zach Taylor, and also had Jake Browning playing the way he did. Do I believe that this guy, because he's younger, comes from a style of offense that has been very successful under Zach Taylor, was the OC for the Bengals during all those years? I don't think it's nepotism because of his dad. I think that he really, you know, cut his stripes. I think that it's sad because Derrick Henry's out the door for sure. It's going to be interesting what they do with D-Hop. This is all, and I told my friend Tyler this. He's a Titans fan. He was born in Tennessee and got raised there, and he's a Titans fan, and he likes the hire. And I like it too, because regardless of what you say about the roster or anything like that, this hire is going to be labeled a success or a failure based on what Will Levis does. Now, if you look at Will Levis, he has a strong arm. I mean, if he, you know, compared to everybody else, he might have a top 5 arm in the league when it comes to strength and how far he can throw it. but he needs to be a little bit more polished. What better guy to get him polished in the quarterback position than the dude who was the OC for Joe Burrow, which is one of the most polished quarterbacks in the league when it comes to poise in the pocket, knowing when to get outside the pocket, accuracy, deep ball accuracy. Now, we're talking about Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd as the weapons, but regardless of that, I think that Brian can bring that type of mentality to Will Levis and polish him up. He has all the physical tools necessary. Strong, can run, has a strong arm. He has to develop the processing and has to develop the progression. Going through your progressions. Don't look for one read and then that's it. Don't force balls. Really become cerebral. I think Brian Callahan will allow him to develop that. And it's going to be his success and failure, whether he gets fired in 2 years or 3, or he is the coach for the Titans for 6, 7, 8 years to come, it's going to be based on Will Levis' success. Plain and simple. And that's how the NFL works when you got a young quarterback and you just hire an offensive coordinator to be your head coach. And the last little bit of news was kind of surprising because I read the reports and it was kind of really weird to hear. But Vic Fangio leaves the Dolphins as the defensive coordinator. He was one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. And he's expected to become the Eagles DC, which, if you think about it, that will be as a great benefit to the Eagles and probably take them back up there on the defensive side to not being bottom something in the league, especially on the secondary, to competing again for, top defensive honors with the 49ers and the Ravens and teams like that. It's very interesting that Vic had problems with not problems, but like it seemed like he wasn't connecting with the players in the Dolphins locker room. I don't know how that. I don't know why that was why that was like the final straw type of thing. It seemed like they weren't connecting with him. They weren't reacting to his coaching style of some sort. But it's a big loss for us. We need a DC. Now we need another DC. We have good talent, but it has to all come back from rehab. So essentially, you got Jalen Phillips. He has to come back from Achilles. Bradley Chubb has to come back from a late ACL tear. Javon Holland has to come back from his ailment. So Xavier Howard is getting up there in age. What are we going to do with him? I think we need more help on the edge. Van Ginkel's hurt. So we need to get everybody healthy. We need another corner. I don't care what anybody says. I don't want Kohu out there. Definitely don't want Eli Apple out there, Mr. Burnt Toast. Absolutely not. Send them the fuck out of here. I don't like him. I've never liked him. I watched him at Ohio State. And ever since he's become into the league, he's gotten burnt toast in the Super Bowl as a Bengal, as a Dolphin, as a Giant. Like, you know what I'm saying? Burnt toast. Okay, this guy cannot cover in the league. Same CJ Henderson-esque type of coverage ability, if we're really talking about it. You know what I'm saying? But, it's tough for us to lose Vic Fangio. Such a great defensive mind for McDaniels to lean on the defensive side of the ball. We played well on defense this year when everybody was healthy. He had us at, top 5 in the league on defense ever since like mid season. But, we got to do what we got to do. We still got to score, obviously. So we still got the offense, but we need somebody on that defensive side that is respected and will come in and instill a defensive identity regardless of who's playing. Next man up mentality. But I do not want Eli Apple back there. I don't want Kohu back there. I need a legit number 1 corner. There's people in the draft we can get. There's people in free agency possibly that we can get. Maybe We go to the Bears and we're like, hey, let me get Jalen Johnson. But that will take, I think that'll take a massive contract that I don't think we have right now. So, it's going to be interesting. But Vic Fangio out as the Dolphins head coach. He's expected to become the Eagles DC. That's, for the Eagles, that's music to their ears. For us, it's kind of like, all right, well, we still got to defend against Allen. We got to defend against Aaron Rodgers. So it's not really good for us. So we'll see what happens. Let's move on to the NBA real quick before we get into our predictions and the breakdowns for the championship games. Joel Embiid, 70 points. He is scoring 38 points per 36 minutes. Hasn't been done since Wilt, and he's doing it at a better clip than Wilt. What I want to say about Joel Embiid is this is all fine and dandy. Now, I do see a mentality shift in him in that he's more focused on the championship. He said it after this game. He's like, Wilt didn't do this. It's like, yeah, it's all good, but like, I really want a championship, and that's what we're working towards. That's what I'm working towards. I like that mentality because you should look at it that way. You should get wins in the regular season to position yourself in a good place for the playoffs, but it all comes down to the playoffs. By the way, Doc Rivers signs for around $40 million through the 2026-2027 season. Okay, so 3 years. Okay. Milwaukee's still paying Mike Budenholzer and now Adrian Griffin as well, and they're both fired coaches, which is hilarious. But that's how the NBA works. But Joel, what I like about Joel is Joel has turned his game into a more dominant game. He's always been a dominant defender, but it's more patient. It's less erratic. He does still rely a lot on that 15 to, that 12 to 15 footer right at the top of the free throw line jumper, but it's really efficient right now. He just scored 70. He went 70, 18, and 5. Nobody's ever done that before. And it's nice to see him grow into that. He's definitely leading the MVP candidacy right now. It's not even close. You can throw at me SGA, you can throw at me Giannis, you can throw at me Luka, but at the end of the day, nobody's doing what Embiid's doing. So let's look at the standings a little bit. We'll move through them quick because I went through a really big breakdown last episode. So Boston's still number one, 34 and 10. I think they're just gonna stay there. They're 7 and 3 in their last 10. Milwaukee's also 7 and 3. In their last 10, they're 31 and 13. They're 3 games back. But the thing is, Boston, I think Boston's just going to keep this lead for the rest of the year unless Doc Rivers just unlocks Milwaukee more offensively and maybe like adds defensive identity. Like I said, Milwaukee's at 124.6. Insane offensive efficiency, but I think it could be better. Philadelphia, 4 back. Do I believe that they could get to number 2, possibly number 1? They have to get on a heater, and Boston has to somehow stumble. And Milwaukee can stumble, but I don't see that happening. I feel like Milwaukee's really getting their stride now from what I've seen the last few games. It's really like, they've won 3 in a row. It looks like Dame is really in a rhythm. But then again, Philadelphia's won 6 in a row. And they're 7 and 3 in their last 10. Now, a team that's very interesting. Remember I said Cleveland was like a fake 4 seed? I don't know what possibly they can do in the playoffs. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They lost their last game. But if Donovan Mitchell's going to play this way, the thing is he got phased out against the Knicks last year in the playoffs. The pick and roll didn't work. The driving didn't work. He didn't shoot well from 3. Now, was that an outlier or was that because of the Knicks defense? I would like to say it's a combination of both because Donovan Mitchell's a very good player, especially as a scorer. But Cleveland being 4 is they're kind of just wedged in there. Like, people not really talking about them. It's kind of just there. They don't have Mobley. They don't have Darius Garland, but they're still 4th in the East. Now, they're 7 games back of the 1, so they're not even getting close to that. There's a clear separation, 1, 2, 3, 4 games, and then, 4, 5, 6, and 7. It's 7 games, 10 games, and then 8 with Orlando. They're 11 games back. The Knicks, OG Anunoby was a great trade. They still need, like I said, another punch. I don't know if they're looking at a Zach LaVine. I don't know if they're looking at anybody. DeJounte. I don't know. But they need another scorer. You can just see it. You can see it on the floor. Everything is running a lot through Brunson. You don't know if you can trust Julius Randle fully all the time to get you a bucket. OG is showing that he could be more of an offensive player, but he's a defensive anchor right now. Sims came back. Maybe that will boost them up, especially in the paint, since they don't have Mitchell Robinson. But, supposedly Grimes is in the trade rumor mill. DiVincenzo's shooting well from 3, but they need another scorer. It's just, you can see it. It's so plainly to see when you see their highlights. Like, they could be winning, but you can see that they need another bulk shot creator. Miami, we lost yesterday. We've lost 4 in a row. We're still 6th. Lost 4 in a row, and we're still 6th. We can't lose many more. We're 4-6 in our last 10. Jimmy came back. We have no Triple J. We just got Terry Rozier. We lost with him yesterday. What we need to do is very simple. We need to score more than 110.5 points a game, because we're giving up, guess what, 110.5 points a game. So our differential is 0.0. That is not good. Okay? That is not good for a team that has Bam, Jimmy, Tyler Hero, now Terry Rozier, no Triple J. But you're talking about one dude is going to shift, one rookie is going to shift everything one way. I don't think so. I think that we should be way better scoring the ball. We're facing the same problem we faced the last 2-3 years when we reached the finals, is efficiency in the half court. We cannot, for some reason, we can't create shots in the half court. We can't. We can't take people off the dribble. Sometimes we hit threes. Sometimes we could spot up. Closing out, they close out on us. People are indecisive on closeouts. I believe Terry Rozier will change that as he ingratiates himself into the offense. But if we're only going to score 110.5 points a game, we better be at a legendary defensive a statistic, and we're not. We're at 110.5. It's pretty good for this era of basketball. But if we're not scoring at the same level of a Milwaukee or a Philly or even a Cleveland, it's not going to change us when we face those dudes and they blow us out the water because we can't score in the half court. It's been the problem since the bubble, scoring in the half court. Why? Because Jimmy's not a half court scorer. Jimmy is not a Dame. Jimmy's not a Steph. Jimmy's not a Shea. Jimmy's not an Anthony Edwards. If you want to go a little bit older, Devin Booker, Jason Tatum. He's not that. He's not even a Jalen Brunson when it comes to the half court. He's more of a let's pass, do the right thing, play the right way. He doesn't take it upon himself, especially in the regular season, to instill fear in the other team. He doesn't do it. He stays like this when we need him the most in the regular season. Then he puts the earnest on Tyler. And sometimes Tyler can and cannot. He can't get to the rim. He gets to the rim twice a game. I need him attacking the rim more. With his handle and the way he could slash inside, I think that he should be able to get to the rim more, but he likes taking outside shots still, which is the same thing he did at Kentucky. So I think that Terry Rozier should add to us, but at the same time, we cannot keep doing that. Like, we're 24-20 right now, 4-6 in our last 10. We need to score more. I feel like we should be above the Knicks. with our talent, we should be above the Knicks, and the Knicks are scoring 115 a game and allowing the same thing that we're allowing in defense. So they're playing great defense like we are, but they're scoring 5 more points a game. Without another legit scorer on the floor, but they can still score on the half court because of Jalen Brunson and to some extent Julius Randle. So that's my take on Miami personally. And then I got friends saying, yo, we should trade for Donovan Mitchell. It's like, listen, bro, Miami's not the type of team to just recklessly go after somebody. Miami's the type of team that look for, it's kind of like the Ravens and Steelers. I liken it to that. They look for specific mentality, competitiveness, work ethic, and team play. Okay, those are the big pillars in Miami in Miami basketball. That's what Heat culture's about. Toughness, competitiveness, and basketball IQ. We're not going to willy-nilly give out our pieces to try to compete. We were going to do it for Dame because we've been watching Dame for so long and scouting him. But, go get Donovan Mitchell. The Cleveland Cavaliers ain't looking at our team and asking for Jimmy. Donovan Mitchell's in his 20s. Jimmy's about to be 33, 34. That's not what they're looking for, especially because they're 4th in the East and we're 6th. They're not going to do that. That's a bad joke. That's a bad joke on the Cleveland side. Like, Cleveland going to look at that. What you offering? You're not offering nothing. Nothing that we don't have. We're 4th in the East without Darius Garland, without Evan Mobley. What can you offer us that we're going to give you our best player? Relatively, a year and a half after we got him? No, that ain't happening. I'm sorry. As much as some Heat fans want it to happen and everything like that, it ain't. It's not going to. Okay? The Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton, they're finally, they're 7th. They're 4-6 in their last 10, lost their last 3, but they're playing Jarris Walker, which is good. They needed to play him. He has been killing in G League. It's time to let the kid develop into what can be a great two-way player. He can score and he can defend. That's what he was doing at Houston when he was there. Orlando's 8. They got Franz back. They're 4-6 in the last 10 because they were without Franz. Do I believe that they can work their way up all the way to like 5? Yeah, I think if they get back to the offensive efficiency that they were at while being still a very good defensive team, I believe that they can get back into the top 6. And they could be a little bit of a threat. Chicago, we've talked about them. They are just moving forward with what they have right now. Unless a move comes in the next week or so, once the trade deadline goes by, like I said, the draft is not looking good. So if they're just going to stand pat and wait for free agency, I guess that's their move. Atlanta's 10. DeJounte Murray's been playing well, but they just suck. Okay, they're not playing AJ Griffin. At this point, I want to ask Snyder, why not? He was having a great season last year. Jalen Johnson's playing well. They would need the scoring punch from an AJ Griffin, but he's collecting DMPs. So I don't know if Schneider just doesn't like him. They have a disconnect. Who knows? Brooklyn plays well, loses leads in the 4th. It's kind of sad. Toronto, once they lost Pascal and OG, it's basically a done deal. They're done. Charlotte's done. Washington, they just fired their coach and put him in the front office, so you know where that's going. Charlotte, lost Terry Rozier and immediately, they lost as well. They lost to Detroit. Detroit won yesterday. They're 2-8 in the last 10. Not that really matters without Cade or anything like that. They should just work on developing more Jaden Ivey and Asar. I like Marcus Sasser. I like Jalen Duren. I like their team, young wise, but 5 wins into the 5 wins in the season, so it's not like a big positive. We have a change. Finally, at the top of the West. Although it's not a big change because they're tied. But OKC is number 1 in the West. After Minnesota being there relatively all season. 31-13, so is Minnesota. They're playing really well. They're won four straight, 8-2 in their last 10. They have an 8.3 differential, scoring 129.9 and a defense of 113.6, which is great. Chet's playing out of his mind. They beat the Spurs yesterday. Chet played well. Jalen Williams, J-Dub, he's emerging. He emerged last year, almost won the Rookie of the Year over Paolo in the second half of the season. But he's emerging as a guy who can also score 25 plus if he gets the opportunities. Now, of course, you have a superstar in SGA of MVP caliber. You have Chet, who's playing out of his mind in his rookie year. But, you know, with J-Dub, gives you so much more versatility because he plays the 4, but he really plays the 1. It's interesting. He's 6'6", big body, can shoot, can get in the lane, can finish at the rim, can defend. And he's going to be a really big piece. And this is very interesting. A lot of people haven't said this, but the OKC Thunder has kind of done it again. You know, they've kind of done it again. Now, a little bit different because Kevin Durant was drafted. You get what I'm saying? So was Russell Westbrook. And so was James Harden. This team is a little bit more constructed off the SGA trade. But that's it, because Chet was drafted, and so was J-Dub, and they traded up to get J-Dub because people wanted him, okay, in the lottery. So, but they did it again. They have another three guys that look like they're going to develop, especially SGA, that just looks like it's going to develop into very, very, star, if not superstar level players in their future. And that's the same thing they had when they had KD in his third or second year in 2011 when they reached the finals against the Miami Heat and LeBron and D-Wade, or 2012, excuse me, and Russell Westbrook and James Harden. J-Dub, to me, even though he's starting, James Harden came off the bench. He was the sixth man of the year, the year that they went to the finals. J-Dub, to me, is the James Harden of this team. Now, he's a lot more unselfish, but when he needs to get his shot, when they need a bucket, and SGA's maybe on the bench, or maybe he's off that night, it's him and Chet. And him and Chet are playing great basketball. So they have a lot of ways to win because they're not very SGA dependent. Let's say SGA, instead of getting 30, gets 26. Well, J-Dub could go for 26. He could go for 30 if he wants. Chet can go for 30. Chet can go for 25 and 12 rebounds and 5 blocks. So there's different ways for them to win, even though they're young. Like I said, even though they're young and facing a team like the Clippers or like Denver, or even Phoenix that we're going to talk about. It will be tough because of they haven't been in that spotlight in the playoffs. I believe that they have different ways to win. And it starts with SGA. If you can't stop SGA, you're not stopping Chet. You're not stopping J-Dub. You're not stopping the drive and kick with Isaiah Joe. You're not stopping Lou Dort. You're not stopping Cason Wallace, Kenrich Williams, Aaron Wiggins. You're talking about their bench can score. You know what I'm saying? So, and still play elite defense. So shout out to OKC for being 1 in the West. Minnesota's 2. Really interesting, game. Cat scores 44 in the first half, breaks the NBA record. Then he scored 62, but then only scores 4 in the fourth quarter and gets benched and they lose. That's the thing about Cat. How are you going to score 44 in the first half, have 62 in the game, but you only score 4 in the fourth quarter and get benched and your team loses? If you have 44 in the first half and you enter the fourth quarter, if you only scored 4 points, if you enter the fourth quarter with 58, I'm expecting you to go for that Kobe 81. I'm expecting you to do it. I'm expecting you to be blowing out that team and you going for that. Now, he did start missing and everything, but then drive the ball. You're 7 foot. You're 7 foot. Drive the ball. Look to win the game instead of, just dilly-daddling. But then Anthony Edwards recovered yesterday, put in a great, I believe, 39-point performance, Anthony Edwards type of things, to get them back basically even with OKC. Denver's a half game back, guys. Denver is so finely tuned, and it's kind of it is scary. It is scary because they're third in the West, yeah, but it's a half game. Like third in the West really doesn't mean third in the West. They're 31-14. Third in the West is number one because of the defending champs. And we know what Jamal's going to give you in the playoffs. We know what Jokic is going to give you in the playoffs. We know the type of defense that Aaron Gordon's going to give you in the playoffs. So even though they're kind of cruising, they're still kind of the best team in the West. Now, let's get to the hottest team in the West. Remember, so OKC's 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 4 in a row. Minnesota just won yesterday. They're 6-4 in their last 10. Denver's won 3 in a row. They're 7-3 in their last 10. And then the Clippers are 8-2 in their last 10 and won 3 in a row. Now, the thing about the Clippers is that you got 4 Hall of Famers that if they stay healthy will pose a threat to anybody, East or West. And you say, oh, why do you say that? Because of Kawhi. Because Kawhi healthy is basically, if you look at Kawhi in the playoffs, whenever he's been healthy, he's basically a 30-point-a-game scorer. Elite defender. I mean, elite as in first team All-NBA DPOY type of defender of anybody. Center, through point guard, perimeter, or in the paint. And an unstoppable force on the offensive side of the ball. Whether it's from 3 where he's hyper efficient, whether it's from 2 where he's hyper efficient, or going to the rim where he's hyper efficient. And then having that threat coupled with PG as a number 2, James Harden as a facilitator, and Russell Westbrook as a defensive and an energetic bunny off the bench for that second unit with Powell, with Man, Zubac when he comes back, is a very scary thing. And people are like, oh, the Clippers are up there in the contenders. I agree if they stay healthy. It's all about health with them. That's the only question. Are they going to stay healthy? That's the question that everybody's trying to answer. Will they stay healthy? Right now they are, and they're playing really, really well. They're only 2 games back, so relatively speaking, they can get up there. They can get up there with the big boys. I mean, they're already up there. Let's talk about the team that was most surprising, but we kind of talked about it when they got healthy and they started the surge. Phoenix. Now, let me be the first to congratulate them. Okay? Let me be the first to congratulate them because people did not understand the offensive firepower that was Bradley Beal, KD, and Booker at the same time. This is a 3-point shooting, mid-range, and slashing just extravaganza. And it's so tough for defenses because you are helping. Think about this. Let's say Booker's bringing up the ball. All right. You got Booker in a one-on-one. Let's say he's giving you 30 in the night. It's in the, beginning of the fourth quarter, he has 30. Okay. All right. So let's blitz him. Okay. So, but what you don't realize is when you do blitz him, who are you helping off of? Okay, you say you're helping off of one of the other guys. Let's say you're helping off of Grayson Allen, who's shooting over 39% from 3 this year. Let's say you're helping off of Eric Gordon, who's shooting over 39% from 3 this year. Okay? But what if you make the mistake of helping off of KD? Oh, he's shooting almost 60% from 3 this year. He's also being hyper efficient in the 2. Where he's always been, where he lives. Okay, you don't want to help off of KD? Perfectly understandable. Hall of Famer, top 75 player of all time, one of the elite scorers of all time and efficiency-wise. All right, let me help off of Bradley Beal. Okay, well, that guy's also shooting almost 40% from 3 and hyper efficient from the 2, like he's always been where he lives. So you have a conundrum of oh, let me stop Devin because Devin's killing me on the one-on-one, getting into the seams with the one or two dribble pull-up off a transition or in semi-transition or even off the half court with a little pick and roll with maybe KD or Beal or Eubanks or Nurkic, whoever sets the screen for him. If he gets into the seam of that 15 to 17 to 18 footer, he's going to kill you every single time. And that's what's making them be so hyper efficient at the offensive side of the ball. Now, if we look at their splits, it's only a differential of 2.5. They're scoring 116.5 and they're letting up 114. But they've won 7 in a row. And the reason they've won 7 in a row is because you have to pick your poison. It's not a fact of like, oh, we can cover 2 of them and leave 1 open. You can't do that. Why? Because all of them are super efficient in scoring. Bradley Beal has his legs fully back. He can jump and dunk now. Again, he's fully back from the back injury. Devin Booker is in full rhythm, and so is KD. Okay? So, for example, Devin Booker scored 45 last night. 45! Like, so okay. Oh, 45. Yeah, but then KD could give you 30. Bradley Beal could give you 25, 28. And on the other side, KD's playing good defense. So is Devin Booker. Bradley Beal's holding his own. They got Bates Diop and, some combinations of Metu and stuff like that who can limit a little bit. But with the offensive efficiency and scoring punch that they have, they can get on 10, 12, 13-point runs. They were down 22 and came back to win by almost 20 points. In a matter of, 8 minutes. So this team is highly scary. Highly scary. They're 5th in the West right now. And they're only 5 back. 3 back of the Clippers. If they keep going like this, it's going to be very, very tough. Now, we've seen Devin Booker kind of disappear in the playoffs against big-time opponents like Luka. And to some extent, we've seen Kevin Durant in the last 2 playoff series, playoff runs that he's been in, kind of disappear a little bit, especially from the mid-range and be not his hyper-efficient self. But we haven't seen Bradley Beal. And I believe with Bradley Beal, that adds a little bit less on the plate of KD and Booker in the playoffs. But they'll have to stay healthy, so we'll see. But very, very impressive. 7 in a row, 8-2 in their last 10. And really showing the offensive top heaviness that we expected from them, but at a level that is definitely overcoming the defensive shortcomings that they have right now, being top heavy. New Orleans is 6, 5 back, just like the Phoenix Suns. 6-4 in their last 10. They won their last game. They have a +5 differential, allowing 112.5, scoring 117.5. This team is another team that's very scary. And the reason I say that is because the reason that they can be very scary is that let's say Brandon Ingram is his efficient self, CJ's playing to his caliber. If Zion is playing at his superstar number 1 pick level, fully healthy, you have a problem. You have an extreme problem. Like I said last pod, you cannot pack the paint with this team. You can't. Oh, but Josh, I think if you pack the paint, you'll be able to stop Zion enough. Okay, what about the drive and kick? Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Jordan Hawkins, Dyson Daniels, Valanciunas. What are you going to do with that? So all right, we're going to pack the paint. We're going to stop Zion from destroying us inside. Even if you pack the paint, he can outjump you, and he has great touch around the rim. Okay? Great touch around the rim. So this season, he's still out of 61.3% effective field goal percentage. His clip is still insane. It's not like you're stopping him and he's going to miss, 60% of his shots. No, it's not happening. He finds a way either to get to the line or get into the seams and out jump you and have crafty finishes at the rim. And if not, he uses his vision to get passes out to his shooters. The defense of this team can be elite if everybody locks in. They have the length. They have the requisite amount of defensive resources to be an elite defense. Okay? They just have to stay healthy, especially Zion. If that happens, anybody who faces them is going to be scared. Anybody. Because the last thing you want to see, I believe, is Zion in the playoffs. Because I believe that Zion will play with the type of reckless abandon like an Anthony Edwards plays in the playoffs, where it's like, I'm the guy. And if you can't stop me, you can't stop us at all. I believe Zion has that in him. We have to see it, but I believe he does have it in him. Sacramento at 7. Sacramento and Dallas are it's a tough team to look for because it's 7 and they're 8th. Kyrie didn't play yesterday because of a thumb sprain. I think he's going to be fine. And Sacramento, it's just the West is so tough. Domantas Sabonis is having an absolute great season. He's leading the league in rebounding again. But against the teams that we already talked about, it's so tough. And that's why they're 7. They're 6 games back of the 1 seed. It's not like they're, oh my God, 10, 12 games back. They're 2 games back of the 5th seed. One game back actually, because they're 6 games back of the 1, and the 5th and 6th seed are 5 games back. And Dallas is 7 games back. So they're right there. Everybody's right there. There's so much parity. But the reason why it's so tough is because you got to look at who they have. De'Aaron Fox could be a 30-point scorer in the playoffs. We saw that last year. Malik Monk off the bench could be 25 a game. We saw that last year. Luka, 30, 33, 34 a game in the playoffs. We've seen that. Kyrie, hyper efficient and an extreme scorer. We've seen that. So these teams are so closely entangled with each other that it's very tough to pick, if this is a matchup, what would happen? So when I look at the standings, the play-in are amazing. The play-in is not like bottom feeders. These are legit teams. Now let's talk about the Lakers. They're 9.5 games back in 9th place, 23-23, 5-5 in their last 10. They have a -1 differential. I still do not believe that they have even close to enough to deal with the likes of offensive punch of Phoenix, definitely the Clippers, Denver, not even close, Minnesota, if they try to stop Anthony Edwards, and OKC, I think, have too much offensive talent and defensive resources to get to LeBron and AD. Now, this is the regular season. Once they get into the playoffs, everything goes out the window for the Lakers. Not just because of the refs, which is a bad joke at this point, but because of LeBron, because of AD, if they play at that level. Everybody else has to raise their level. D'Lo's been playing great the last few games. A couple 30 bombs. But they're 9th in the West, in the play-in, relatively kind of out of it to get up there with those teams, because when you talk about 1 through 6, they're rolling. You gotta play really good to beat New Orleans. You gotta play really good to beat Phoenix right now. Really good to beat the Clippers. Almost perfect to beat Denver. Almost perfect to beat Minnesota, and damn near perfect to beat OKC. Any given night. Why? Well, I don't know, because SGA could give you 30. Chet could give you 25 or even 20, but he gives you 5 blocks or he gives you 13 rebounds. Anthony Edwards could give you 30. Cat could give you 25. Gobert could give you 20. McDaniels could give you 20. They could do it by committee. But if you can't stop Ant, you have no shot. Denver, hyper efficient. You're not going to stop Jokic. And if Jamal's going off for 25 plus, very, very highly unlikely you're going to win that game. The Clippers could stop you defensively. And then you don't have anything on the other end for Kawhi PG, James Harden, and Russ, and Powell, and Man. You just don't. Phoenix, what are you going to do with KD? Oh, well, we're going to blitz him. What are you going to do with Devin? What are you going to do with Bradley? These are all questions. New Orleans. Oh, we're going to put AD on Zion. Oh, all right. Cool. That sounds wonderful. What are you going to do with every three-point shooter on the floor? You're going to put Austin Reeves on Brandon? Oh, no, we're going to put LeBron on Brandon Ingram. Oh, okay, so you're going to put Austin Reeves on CJ? You're going to get Jordan Hawkins just run all over the court? You're going to try to get D'Lo to run with him? What are you going to do with Valanciunas if AD's on Zion? Oh, we're going to put LeBron on Zion, AD on Valanciunas. All right, so you're going to put Austin Reeves on BI? So that's going to leave Taurean Prince on CJ? A lot of different matchup nightmares. Even with the Kings. Who's going to match up against Fox? Oh, we're going to put AD on DeMontis. Okay, we'll put AD on DeMontis. All right, cool. So what are you going to do with Keegan Murray? Looks like it's going to be Austin Reeves. And then you got LeBron on Fox. So he gets tired on the defensive end. And then it affects you on the offensive end. You know, so it's a lot of different. Dallas. What are you going to do with Dallas? Oh, well, we're going to put LeBron on Luka. And we're going to put, I guess, Austin Reeves or D'Lo on Kyrie. All right, so get cooked by Kyrie. And then LeBron does his best to limit Luka. And even if he does limit Luka scoring-wise, if anybody's open on the floor, he will find them. And they're hitting their shots. And Tim Hardaway, another guy that Austin Reeves has to cover. So, you know, based on all of that, I don't see where they can get a legit advantage against those really, really, really good teams, especially the top four. Maybe the top five with Phoenix. Utah. Lost their last three, so they kind of lost their luster a little bit. They're still 10th. They're a game up on Houston. Houston's lost 2 in a row. They're 3-7 in their last 10, so they're not doing much. Golden State won yesterday. They're 4-6. I like what Kuminga did. He got 25, 11 of 11, I think 12 rebounds. If they want to run the offense through Kuminga and Curry, I am not opposed to it. I'm not. Is it going to help them? Hey, they're only a game back of 10. Okay? A game back of 10, 2 games back of 9th. They can still make the playoffs. It's not like they're out of it, you know, but they need help by the top people to lose a little bit, and they need to win. You know, and they need to win. Moves can still be made. I believe so that moves can still be made. Absolutely. But what Kuminga has shown me, at least the last game that I just saw him, he's shown to like be a little bit more patient, get to his midi, use his athleticism to get to the rim, still a defensive, a defensive stopper to some extent on the perimeter. I believe that they can get better. But how much better with this roster? You know, it remains to be seen. Draymond is attacking the rim. He's hitting his threes as well. So if that continues with Pachinski developing more and Trace developing more, then, you know, Wiggins has to get back on track. Clay has to get back on track. Curry's still being Curry. But if you want a legit shot at making the playoffs and competing, you either has to do something or really get clicking. Memphis with G.G. Jackson. I am a firm believer now that kid should be a starter. He's shown us he can hit the three. He's long. He can play a little defense. He's the youngest player in the league. I think that they should give him a starting role. Let him just run with Triple J. You got no Desmond Bane right now. He's going to be evaluated in 6 weeks. You have no John Morant. Let the kid play. Vince Williams is stepping up into a score role. He scored 25 their last game. He's hitting his threes, Vince Williams Jr. But I think you should start G.G. Jackson at this point. Portland. Jeremy Grant hit a game winner yesterday. They're not going to do much. I just want to I want to see. I like Anthony Simons. I think they're keeping him. He's a hyper scorer. I haven't seen Shaedon Sharpe. I don't know if he's hurt. Scoot got to start scoring. Okay, Scoot has to at least start slashing to the rim and getting close to 20 points a game. You're 40 games in. For him, it's a little bit less because he was hurt at the beginning of the season. But I think that he should start trying to force his will on the offensive end, personally. And San Antonio, Wemby's doing great, but the team's not really going anywhere. And then, to be honest, if I'm Golden State, I go after a guy like Devin Vassell. That's a guy I would like to go after. A scorer, can get to the rim, can score from the three. I think that'd be a good fit for them. Maybe give him Wiggins, since Devin Vassell's way younger, kind of like the same build, maybe a little bit more efficient. That's just me, though. Let's get to let's get to these two games, guys. Let's get Lions 49ers. Okay? Lions 49ers. What are we feeling here? All right? We're trying to go 2-0, right? We're trying to go 2-0. Let's start with the weather. Okay? Because that was a big factor last week. Let's start with the weather. The weather's looking like 69 and sunny. Okay? 69 and sunny. What does that mean? That means Brock Purdy's not going to have a problem gripping the ball. Okay? Now, let's see. Debo's still up in the air, I believe. Okay, with the shoulder. Now, do I believe that Kyle Shanahan will have a plan if Debo's not there? Absolutely. And to be honest, just because Debo's not there doesn't mean that they can't still dominate, because Trent Williams is still there. And I think that's the biggest guy, importance-wise, for their offense to have complete success is Trent Williams. Because that blind side is so important to that offense. Because that's where they run with CMC behind. That's where all the passing strength is always towards. They don't worry about that side because Trent has that side. Now, this is a very conflicting game for me, because if it is sunny, that means Jared Goff is going to be in favorable conditions. But they have been known to be a dome team. And Detroit hasn't won there in, I think, over 20 years. They haven't won at San Francisco. And I'm going with San Francisco. Close game. This is not going to be a blowout by any means. I'm going with San Francisco. Simple fact. I believe that defense, although showed kinks in the armor last week in the running game, will be buttoned up. Okay? Jahmyr Gibbs, this is going to come down to the offensive line versus the D-line. Can Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Hargrave, and Eric Armstead deal with Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell, and that offensive line? Okay? Can they deal with Montgomery? Can they deal with Jahmyr Gibbs? Can Charvarius Ward limit Amon-Ra St. Brown? And can Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw somehow, some way limit Sam Laporta? That's what it's going to come down to. But I believe that offense, I believe Brandon Ayuk will have a good game. I believe George Kittle has a propensity to have a big game. And if no Debo's there, you got to watch out for Jawan Jennings. Now, the Lions are a pretty good run defense. But this is CMC we're talking about. CMC doesn't necessarily need to run the ball to be effective. Screens, angle routes, Texas routes, flat out just going outside as a receiver. I'm going with San Francisco because the overall package of San Francisco, I believe, is better than Detroit. Now, let's break down both sides. Offensive line, I think I have to give it to San Francisco just because of Trent Williams. He is possibly the greatest left tackle of all time. Okay? If we move to the weapons, we look at, it goes Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Josh Reynolds, and if you want to throw in there, Craig Reynolds in the backfield and stuff like that, you can do that too. Versus, even without Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, CMC, Jawan Jennings. Okay? Backfield, CMC and Elijah Mitchell, which I don't think they'll use that much, against Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Quarterback, Brock Purdy and the amazing season he's had versus Jared Goff and the amazing season he's had. This will come down to the offensive line versus the defensive line and red zone efficiency. Both of these games, we're going to talk about red zone efficiency. Okay? But this is going to come down to Kyle Shanahan trying to outwit and out-scheme Aaron Glenn. The weakness for the Lions that the 49ers do not have, and I'm picking the 49ers because of this weakness of the Lions, is that they only have one legitimate pass rusher game changer. That's Aiden Hutchinson. Okay? When you look at the other side with 49ers, their whole line can wreck a game. Nick Bosa could wreck a game. Hargrave could wreck a game. Eric Armstead could wreck a game. And Chase Young could wreck a game. That's why I'm picking the 49ers. Because the overall defensive unit is way more stacked. And you have to account for a lot more dangerous players on that side of the ball than you would have to as the offensive line for the 49ers against that Lions defensive line. Now, I'm not saying the defensive line for the Lions is bad because they've made it to the NFC Championship game. Obviously not. But Aiden Hutchinson is the one that you have to worry about. McNeil in the middle, double team and stuff like that. But you don't have another guy on the other side. And I think that's what they're going to target in this offseason if they lose this game especially, is another guy on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson to give you that dual threat that you have with a Chase Young and a Nick Bosa. Okay? So I'm going to go with 49ers in a close game. And I believe Brock Purdy will play well. He won't have a blunder like he did last week, even though he took him to the NFC Championship game with that last drive. If Debo does not play, Brandon Ayuk and CMC will be the critical players. Possibly George Kittle if Brandon Ayuk is not clicking on all cylinders or they're just not looking for him. If Debo does play, more in the favor of the 49ers, because then you have to re-scheme your defense to stop Debo, and then that leaves BA open, and that leaves George Kittle more open, and also CMC. That's where I'm going. I'm going 49ers in a close game at home to go to the Super Bowl. Okay? Now let's go to the next game, the one that everybody's talking about. And we're going to break this down fully. Let's start with what I think about this game. The winner of this game, I believe, will be the Super Bowl champ. What about the 49ers? Listen, whether you like it or not, as a 49er fan, when the other guy on the other side is causing this at the same position, two-time MVP, one is a two-time Super Bowl champ and a two-time Super Bowl MVP, and the other guy's a two-time MVP plus the youngest MVP of all time, unanimous, and having an awesome year throwing the football, as well as you can't stop them running, and they already beat you by double digits in the regular season, that's where it gets scary. So I believe the winner of this game will win the Super Bowl. Okay? Now, let's break down this game by every single phase and understanding that the margins are very, very slim. Okay? The difference in this game will come down to red zone efficiency and turnovers. Okay? That is it. That's it. It will come down to red zone. Can you score in the red zone, touchdowns, and turnovers? Okay? Sacks will be a big, big part of this game. Whoever has more sacks probably will win the game. Considering that against the Buffalo Bills defensive line, the Chiefs gave up 0 sacks. And same thing with Lamar. This is going to be a battle. Now, Joe Thuney possibly not going to play. Giant, and I don't want to understate this, giant implications for the Chiefs running game and pass protection. You're going against the defense that led the league in sacks and is absolutely hunting heads. Roquan Smith and Patrick Queens are legit linebackers, just like Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs were in their heyday. Kyle Hamilton will be the one-on-one defender on Kelsey. It's going to come down to, can Kelsey and Mahomes outwit Kyle Hamilton and Mike McDonald? Okay? And can Rashee Rice play up to the occasion and win his one-on-ones versus this defense? Without Joe Thuney, I personally don't think it's possible that Mahomes will get that much time. He needs his full complement of offensive linemen. Now, this is Mahomes. So what I'm saying here is, I was talking to my friends, and they're dead set. Some of them are dead set on Lamar, stopping the Chiefs train. And looking at it, I was like, oh, you're underestimating Pat Mahomes and everything. But when you really look at it from every angle, and if I get this prediction wrong, I will not be mad. Okay? If we go 1-1 or even 0-2, I like all 4 teams. So I will not be mad. I'd be disappointed a little bit that I couldn't pick them and I couldn't see the gaps of what led to the wins or every respective team winning, but I wouldn't be mad. Now, some people are saying this might be a blowout on the favor of the Ravens. I don't see that just because it is Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce. I don't see a blowout. I see a competitive game. But can Chris Jones affect the game as much as he did last week and he's done in every playoff run for the Chiefs, enough that it will offset the defensive juggernaut that is facing Pat Mahomes on the other side? This is going to come down to Andy Reid versus Mike McDonald and, Spags versus Harbaugh. That's what it's going to come down to. And I believe that the way Lamar is playing, the weapons that he has, possibly has Mark Andrews back with Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers, OBJ, Bateman, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and his offensive line intact, and the way that he's been playing, I believe that the Ravens win this game at home. Now, this is not me underestimating Pat Mahomes at all. And if he pulls it off, hey, it's Pat Mahomes. Okay? But if we look at everything, you take Joe Thuney out of the offensive line, that gives the offensive line edge to the Ravens. Pacheco will be a huge part of this game. He has a toe, but he's going to play. A huge part of this game. He had 98 yards last week. Okay? If they can run the ball, then they can mitigate what Lamar can do. But if the Ravens play keep away and run the ball efficiently and Lamar has long sustaining drives, I believe that the time will just run out for KC. And the Ravens being at home is a real advantage with the flock there at M&T Bank Stadium. And it might be Lamar's time. I believe it is Lamar's time. I believe he was destined to be a Hall of Famer since Louisville. I think he's on that trajectory and very close to it. If he wins this championship, he is a cemented Hall of Famer. 2 MVPs, possibly a Super Bowl MVP, a Super Bowl championship, youngest MVP of all time, unanimous. So I'm going with the Ravens. Defensive advantage goes to the Ravens. They have the number 1 defense left in the playoffs. Offensive advantage, the way that it's structured weapons-wise, it goes to the Ravens. You're looking at 4 or 5 legit weapons that can wreck your game. You never know if OBJ just wakes up and goes back into Super Bowl mode, when he was with the Rams. You don't know if Zay Flowers wakes up and he goes for 100 or a buck 50 on like 5 or 6 catches on deep balls. You don't know if Rashad Bateman wakes up and goes for 75 or 100 plus. Mark Andrews comes back. You don't know if, it's seamless and Mark Andrews is back to the Mark Andrews we know. Or Isaiah Likely, who has turned into basically his younger Mark Andrews in the safety blanket department. And this is without saying of the scariest part of that offense, which is Lamar running the football. Okay? So there are so many weapons, so many ways that they can carve you up. The reason that they have blown out the best teams in the NFL all season. Okay? Every team who has done this, what they've done, blown 6 teams out by more than 14 points in a season, has reached the Super Bowl, and all but 2 of them, since I believe the 60s, have won the Super Bowl. Okay? They're at home. Lamar's playing extremely confident with an offense that he's extremely comfortable in. And I think he's going to run the ball enough to put the fear of God into that Kansas City defense. And one mistake by that Kansas City defense will mean the demise of that team. One mistake, one unfilled rushing lane, one containment breach, and Lamar's out the door. And he'll hurt you. And you're not going to hurt him because he doesn't take big shots. So I think that regardless of everything, Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid and Chris Jones and Spags, unless this Kansas City defense bows up to the point where they're forcing maybe 3 and outs and they're forcing field goals, and the kicking game goes to Justin Tucker, obviously the GOAT. So overall, I think Baltimore has more in the tank and more ability as in actual football to win this game. And I believe they'll win this game because they're at home. Okay? The line is 3.5. I think Baltimore can win this game. I don't think it'll be a blowout. It has a propensity to go that way if that defense really, really stops Mahomes, but I don't think it'll happen. But I'm going to go with Baltimore in a close game, and then I'm picking Baltimore to win the Super Bowl. Okay? Because Lamar has lost once against the NFC in his career, or 3 times. Every other time that they've seen him, they've gotten stomped. And the 49ers got stomped. And also the Lions got stomped by Lamar this year. So overall, I'm going with Baltimore. I love Pat Mahomes. If he wins this game, it's just more to his legacy, more to the mantle. But for Lamar, I just feel like this is his year. This defense is absolutely suffocating. They hit like an old school Ravens defense with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. And I just believe that they just have more resources on both sides of the ball to be able to limit Pat Mahomes and to expose a little bit this defense. That's my personal opinion. We'll see what happens. I'm going with Baltimore. But if the KC pulls it out, I will not be surprised. This is Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Kelce we're talking about. Okay? That's the breakdown. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. We enjoy these AFC and NFC championships. We have to enjoy the little bit of football we got left. We have the draft coming up and the combine and all that. The NBA is getting spicy right before All-Star break. And we still have the baseball to work up to as well. Racing starts soon with the Daytona 500 and F1. We're going to get into that this year because I love that, and I love talking about it as well. I love you guys. Thank you for all the support. I'm going to be posting this immediately after I'm done recording it. So whenever it uploads to all the major streaming platforms, I will post it on my social medias, on El Boricua y El Parcero podcast, IG, my Snapchat, and TikTok. I'm working on getting a webcam so we can get on YouTube and stuff like that. I love you guys. Thank you for everything. This is El Boricua y El Parcero podcast, and I leave you with the outro.
El fenómeno que todos quieren ser, el chamaquito que no puede